The first time I saw her cry, my world shattered. Every tear that rolled down her cheek felt like a drop of acid on my heart. I'd wrap my arms around her, whispering promises that I'd fix whatever was broken, that I'd be the man she deserved. For years, I believed her sadness was a reflection of my own shortcomings. I worked harder, loved deeper, and tried to fill the unspoken void I thought I had created. Little did I know, her tears weren't for me. They were a performance, a masterpiece of manipulation, and I was her captive audience. Her sadness always seemed to follow a pattern. It would surface after a girls' night out or a late work meeting. She'd come home, eyes red-rimmed, claiming she felt lost or overwhelmed by life. I'd spend the night holding her, reassuring her of my unwavering love. The next morning, she'd be distant, almost cold, as if my comfort was an inconvenience. I chalked it up to emotional exhaustion. I bought her flowers, planned romantic getaways, and even suggested therapy, thinking I could mend her fragile spirit. I was so focused on being her hero that I never once questioned who the villain might be. The cracks started to show in the most mundane ways. A stray text message I wasn't supposed to see, a name she'd mention in her sleep, a sudden password change on her phone. Each incident was a tiny splinter, easily dismissed on its own. "It's just a colleague," she'd say with a dismissive wave of her hand. "You're just being insecure," she'd counter, turning my concern into an accusation. She was an expert at making me feel like I was the crazy one, that my instincts were just paranoia. And because I loved her, because I was desperate to keep our perfect picture intact, I believed her. I apologized for my doubts and buried my suspicions deep down, hoping they would disappear. One evening, she told me she was going to a yoga retreat for the weekend. "I just need to clear my head, find my center again," she explained, her eyes filled with that familiar, convincing sadness. I hugged her goodbye, telling her to take all the time she needed. But that night, a storm of unease washed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. I wasn't a spy, I wasn't a jealous husband, but that night, I became an investigator in my own life. A friend had recently mentioned seeing her car parked near a high-end downtown hotel, a place far from any yoga studio. At the time, I brushed it off, but now it was a siren blaring in my head. My heart pounded against my ribs as I drove to that hotel. Every traffic light felt like an eternity. Part of me was praying I was wrong, that I'd find nothing and go home feeling foolish but relieved. The other part of me, the part I had been suppressing for so long, knew what I would find. I gave the valet a generous tip and asked about her car. He confirmed it was there. With a fake story about a forgotten briefcase, I learned her room number, room 712. I stood outside that door for what felt like a lifetime, my hand trembling as I raised it to knock. I didn't knock. Instead, I just listened. And through the thick wood, I heard it. Her laugh. It wasn't the sad, delicate sound I was used to. It was a full, unrestrained laugh, a sound of pure joy I hadn't heard directed at me in years. And then, I heard his voice. In that moment, her tears weren't just a lie. They were a weapon. They weren't a sign of her pain. They were the curtain she hid behind while she lived another life. Every time she had cried in my arms, it wasn't because she was sad about us. It was guilt. It was the stress of managing her deceit. She wasn't crying because she was unhappy with me. She was crying because keeping her secrets was exhausting. She cried for herself, not for me. My comfort wasn't for her broken heart. It was the fuel she used to continue her betrayal, a way to keep me anchored at home while she sailed off on other adventures. I walked away from that door and never looked back. The drive home was a blur. The man who had driven to the hotel, desperate to save his marriage, was gone. In his place was someone new, someone whose world had been rebuilt on a foundation of cold, hard truth. There were no dramatic confrontations, no screaming matches. My response was silence. When she returned from her yoga retreat, glowing and relaxed, she found my side of the closet empty and a divorce lawyer's card on my pillow. Her confusion quickly turned to panic, and then, for the first time, she cried real tears. They were tears of loss, not of sadness for what she had done, but of anger for being caught. It was then I realized the truth. He thought her tears were real until he discovered the hidden reason. I was that man. I learned that some people don't cry because they're hurt. They cry because it's the most effective tool they have. They use sympathy as a shield and vulnerability as a sword. Rebuilding my life has been a journey. Learning to trust again, especially my own judgment, has been the hardest part. But my new life is not built on illusions or deciphering crocodile tears. It's built on honesty. It's quieter, simpler, and for the first time in a long time, it's real. My heart may have scars, but it is no longer a stage for someone else's performance. If you've ever felt like you re-drowning while trying to save someone who is secretly a better swimmer, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go of the rope. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. Your support means the world. Stay strong and trust your gut.